Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Welcome to Sunday Night History Chat here, Hardy on History. Drop me a note. Let me know where you are watching from. I'm Michael C. Hardy. Welcome to my crazy library. Welcome, if you've not visited before, to Sunday Night History Chat, where we just kind of go down all kinds of rabbit holes and talk about all kinds of interesting things. Yeah. Hope everybody's having a great week, a great summer. It's warm, it's humid here in the mountains of Western North Carolina, and we are all looking forward to fall. Cannot wait. I had a great, fantastic time this past Monday night. Speaking to the Western North Carolina Civil War Roundtable down in Waynesville, North Carolina. Fantastic folks. Got some really cool things to share, except I left it upstairs. No, we'll talk about it next week. It's the Dr. Mitchell piece. But had a fantastic time. Great conversations, great discussions. It was just really, really good. Really good. And then yesterday I was at the Butler, Tennessee Museum. If you've never been over there, Butler is the town that drowned. The Watauga River was dammed. And, excuse me, the Watauga River was dammed in 1942, 43, and they basically moved the town from where it was located to where it is now. They have a superb local history museum that covers a lot of that area. So if you've never been to East Tennessee and to the Butler Museum there in Butler, Tennessee, go check it out. It's really, really cool. Want to say good evening so far to Robert in Arizona and Adam down in Lee County and David over near Knoxville and Jason Boshears, who's someplace between Louisville and East Tennessee, or Tennessee, and Bobby Joe Goodson, Jason Boshears. I can't remember where you live, even though I've been there. Elm Springs, that's not the name of the town. Columbia, Tennessee. Took a minute to get me there. Hope everybody is doing well. David Pope, we also snuck off and saw Young Washington on Monday? No, Tuesday. On Tuesday. I strongly recommend you go see it as well. That's like the first movie I have seen in the theater in 2 or 3 years.
Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was the last one.
Elizabeth says Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was the last movie I saw in the theater. But go check it out. Lots of exciting things going on in the upcoming week. I am going to be on the road, have a research trip tomorrow. I am going to be on the road. We'll be speaking to the Sons of Confederate Veterans Camp in Greenville, South Carolina on this upcoming Thursday evening. And then on that is July 23rd. And then July 25th, I will be at the Independence Muster at Fort Watauga, Sycamore Shoal State Park. I will also be signing books that afternoon as well. There's our friend Jason Lloyd, recovering from the first Manassas event. It looked warm, but you looked great. Did Manassas event once. I think it was the 140th, and I'm good. That was a big reenactment. It was hot. Elizabeth didn't go to that one. New books to the library for the library right now. We've got the first 2 volumes of the Chancellorsville Papers, published by Savas Beatty. Not cheap, but full of good stuff. I've just flipped through them. It's not even in my stack to read right now, but we'll get there. First volume is reports. Second volume is not reports. It's personal letters. A lot of things from Augustus Hamlin, which you've read my book on the Branch Lane Brigade. His name has come across there. He talked a lot to James H. Lane and a lot of other folks. There's a letter right there. Who's that one from? That one's from the John Bigelow Papers, which is also another extremely important set of things. So these are the first 2 volumes, over 1,000 pages in these volumes. Probably that one's got 415. That one's got, so about 1,200 pages, and there's supposed to be at least 1, if not 2 more volumes. Good stuff. So this evening, for our discussion, the post I've been working on, which should be up tomorrow, that deal with diversity in the Confederate ranks. And this is something, if you go back and look at my blog, Looking for the Confederate War, if you go back and look at the Branch Lane Brigade book that I've already talked about, if you go look at the Feeding Lee's Army of Northern Virginia, if you go look at the new book about Western North Carolina and East Tennessee and the American Revolution, I'm trying to tell all of these different stories. And so the story that I've been working on, and it has been in my brain percolating for a long time. Anyway, to go back to what I was saying, we've been trying I've been trying to tell a lot of these stories. I've been trying to tell a lot of these stories over the past few years, especially through the blog, even though it appears in some of the books that I have written. But especially on the blog, the blog is free. Anybody can go look at it, and it gets a lot of hits, and I should really do a better job with it. But I don't. So I wrote a post back in 2014, December of 2014, that talks about a racially integrated Confederate army. And I was reading an article in the Journal of Civil War Era, where the author of the essay did not believe that the Confederate army was integrated to any degree. And he totally shot down the idea that there were tens of thousands of Black Confederate soldiers that served from the ranks. That is another rabbit hole. And I have very strong feelings. There were a lot of Black men who got pensions. There's an entire book about that. But I don't feel that a lot of these men were soldiers. They were teamsters, they were wagoners, they helped build fortifications. There was another post I wrote several years ago. When was this one? In October of 2018, where I talked about the steps you had to take to become a Confederate soldier. There are actually 2 different things that you had to do to swear to. And this is 1863 copy of the regulations of the Confederate Army. Okay. 2 different things that you had to swear to. One of them is when you first joined, you had to swear that you had to, actually, you didn't swear this one. The recruiting officer read this one to you and you signed it. And this says, I state your name. Some of y'all just got that joke. Desiring to enlist in the Army of the Confederate States for a period of 5 years, do declare that I am blank years old and months of age, that I have neither wife nor child, that I have never been discharged from the Confederate States service on account of disability or by a sentence of a court martial or by order before expiration of a term of enlistment. And I know of no impediments to my serving honestly and faithfully as a soldier for 5 years. Okay. Has to be witnessed. And then within 6 days, you have to swear. I state your name. Did you get the joke that time? Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will bear true allegiance to the Confederate States of America and that I will serve them honestly and faithfully against all their enemies or opposers whatsoever, and observe and obey the orders of the President of the Confederate States and the orders of the officers appointed over me according to the rules and articles for the government of the armies of the Confederate States. Okay? You had to do that to be a Confederate soldier. Plus, you had to be read the Articles of War, all 101 of them. In fact, the regulations, let's see, I don't have this one bookmarked, but the regulations actually state that, this is paragraph 1452, the rules and the Articles of War are to be read to the recruits every month after the inspection, and so much thereof as relates to the duties of non-commissioned officers and soldiers will be read to them every week. Every time you got mustered to be paid, you had to be read the Articles of War, and you had to be mustered. That's another process. I do not find most people who got pensions who were black even coming close to fulfilling all of those responsibilities. Now, that being said, that's a long rabbit hole, and you can disagree with me. That's fine. That being said, over the course of the 30 plus years that I have been researching and writing about this little area of North Carolina where I live, I have found several free men of color who volunteered for Confederate service. I have their compiled service records. I have found them in the 1860 census where it says they are not white. I have blogged about this. They appear in my books. It is all noted. It is all documented. I've talked about William Cousins and William Franklin and Henry. William Franklin and Cousins and his brother Henry. William Franklin was killed at the Battle of Second Manassas. There actually are two other cousins who served in the 28th in North Carolina. One of them died of typhoid in Richmond on July 28th, 1862. The other one, Bloom, his name was Bloom Cousins, he deserted. Then there's the story of M.L. Townsend and his brother, which is Marion L. Townsend, enlisted in the 26th North Carolina. He is killed on day 1, July 1st, 1863 at Gettysburg. So if I can find men like this in this little area where I live and research, there's probably more, and you should probably be looking for them. But to go back to my whole discussion for this evening about this integrated Confederate Army, how many of you have twins or joined named Chang and Ing Bunker? Fascinating story. They were born in what is now Thailand, and Carter Ride came over to the States and worked were with P.T. Barnum and traveled around him and traveled around to other locations, worked with other circuses, went out on their own. They were kind of like a sideshow until they became big time, went out on their own. They got married to two sisters named Adelaide and Sarah Yates in 1843. This is in Wilkes County, North Carolina. Ing and Sarah had 10 children, and Chang and Adelaide had 12 children. I don't know how that works. Well, I mean, I know how you have kids, but I don't know how their relationship worked. That's not the point of the conversation this evening. One of those sons was Christopher Wren Bunker, who was born to Chang and Adelaide in 1845. On April 1st of 1863 in Wythe County, Virginia, he enlisted in Company I of the 37th Battalion Virginia Cavalry. He was mustered in as a private. He was captured at Mooresville, Virginia on August 7th of 1864, sent to Camp Chase, where he arrived on August 24th, 1864. A descriptive list describes him as having a dark complexion, brown eyes, black hair, 5'8", and 20 years of age. He is paroled transferred to City Point, Virginia, and paroled on March 4th, 1865. But wait, there's another Bunker in the 37th Battalion, Virginia Cavalry. Stephen D. Bunker, son of Ing and Laura Bunker, also served. Information on him is really sparse, but according to his widow's pension, Stephen D. Bunker enlisted in July 1864. There's not a clear record for him in the compiled service records, but there are a couple of pages for a man by the name of D.C. Bunker, who was absent wounded in 1864. Is D.C. Bunker and Stephen D. Bunker the same person? I kind of think so. But I'm not sure, not 100% sure. What about the 37th Battalion, Virginia Cavalry? They were originally known as Dunn's Partisan Rangers. They were organized in August of 1862 under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Ambrose C. Dunn. They saw duty during the Jones and Bowdoin Raid, the Battle of White Sulphur Springs, the Siege of Knoxville, the Valley Campaign of 1864, including the Battle of Moorfield that I mentioned a minute ago, Third Battle of Winchester, and they are disbanded in mid-1865. Chang and Ing Bunker, the conjoined twins, passed away in 1874. They were buried at White Plains Baptist Church Cemetery in Surry County, North Carolina. Christopher Bunker passes away in 1932 and is buried at Antioch Baptist Church Cemetery in Surry County. And Stephen D. Bunker passed away in 1920 and is also buried at White Plains Baptist Church Cemetery in Surry County. There is probably not another story like that in all of Confederate service. So with, the conjoined twins having children and those male children serving in the Confederate Army. If you know of it, let me know. But I think this is another step with the free men of color that I've already talked about. And with the Native Americans. There's a guy in the 37th North Carolina whose name was Larkin Oxentine. He was right there with the other soldiers in the company. Yes, there were soldiers, entire companies of Native American troops in the Confederate Army, but we're talking about integrated companies where you have men like William Henry Cozzens and his brother Franklin Cozzens, and you have men like Larkin Oxentine and the two Bunker cousins. They're there in the ranks. They are not separated into separate organizations. I think this is a topic that needs a lot more research, but it's really challenging to go through individual counties and document all of these men and see who went where, when did they go. All of the free men of color that I listed earlier that I can remember right this minute, all volunteered in 1861. Actually, let me double check that. Were the Townsends. Okay, I think Townsend, the two brothers were William Townsend and Marion L. Townsend, and they were both in Company F of the 26th North Carolina. I think they joined in 1861. I'm just going back over my own notes. But, these men, they volunteered. They were not forced into service. They were not someone's slave. Who didn't really have a lot of choice about whether they went or not. And I think when you look at these pensions and say, well, they're body servants, they're working on fortifications. So a lot of times those men are not there willingly. It's just one of those interesting things. Now, I will say this. Some people will say because they were driving wagons for the Confederate government, that they were building fortifications for the Confederate government, that makes them soldiers. And I disagree with that. There are hundreds, thousands of probably tens of thousands of civilians who get a check from the U.S. government who work on military installations um, that are not soldiers. They didn't take the oath. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. No, not that oath. That's my oath. Um, you know, I, to me, they're not soldiers. Um, so that's probably splitting hairs in there. So that's my take on that. And right now, I have not, in all the years I've been doing this, decades I've been doing this, I've not found anything to change my mind yet. I have never seen a document where it says that they lined the Teamsters for whoever's division up, and they swore an oath and were read the Articles of War. If you got that, let me know, and I will gladly change my opinion. But I've not come across that yet. Maybe one day, but not yet. Jason Lloyd, just because they're in the muster roll and they're getting paid, the Confederate government. This is in my Feeding Lee's Army book. At one point, I can't remember the year. I think in 1863, allowed every regiment to hire 3 cooks plus 1 for the officers, and they got paid. They will have a muster roll sheet, but I don't see where they're soldiers. That's just my take on it. Like I said, I'm missing that, how it's defined in the Articles of War, 1863 copy of the regulations for the Confederate armies of the Confederate States. My poor copy's seen better days. I should find a new one, but then this one means a lot to me. I just don't see that. Even if they do have a muster roll sheet, that's my take. So anyway, the story of Christopher and his cousin, I think Christopher Bunker and his cousin Stephen D. Bunker, who were from Thailand, who served in the 37th Battalion, Virginia Cavalry, I think is one of those stories that needs to be remembered. It would be great if we could find letters from the men they served with. And there is a regimental on one of the H.E. Howard books on that battalion. I don't actually have that one. Got many of that series over there, but that's not one that I have. And I don't know what the authors did with that story, or if they even knew that at that time. But yeah, that's my story. Niels, I know of the Confederate government's policy from the outset of the war to restrict service to white men, and I have found 1 or 2 examples where black men were dismissed from the service after they had volunteered, but I've found plenty of examples of where that did not happen. The cousins, brothers, everybody in town knew that they were not white. When Christopher and Stephen joined the 37th Battalion, Virginia Cavalry, their dads were famous. Everybody knew they weren't white. And yet they were allowed to join these Confederate regiments. So I know what the Confederate government's policy said, but I also know that in some cases that was not the practice. That's just, I know that from doing research. So that's my thoughts. What do y'all think? Fascinating little story there. Sorry for the wild hair this evening. Humidity's horrible over here. I can't wait till fall. Jason Lloyd, I know there were multiple freemen of color from multiple states that served in the Confederate Army. We just need to do a better job of writing their stories, of telling their stories. But this is not a story just about free men of color. This is a story about these two soldiers from Thailand. This is a story about the Confederate soldiers who were Native American that are not in Thomas's Legion or the Choctaw Battalion or whatever. These are stories that we need to tell. My 2 cents worth. Our Australian friend is on there. Says he's looking forward to summer at Christmas because it's freezing down there.
Yeah.
I'll take the freezing. Tell us what the temperature is.
Yeah.
We enjoy seeing that. It's not all that warm here right now. It says it's 72 degrees, but it's really humid. I mean, really humid. I know 72 degrees for some of y'all is nothing, but yeah. TJ, thanks for joining us. Just one of those fascinating little things that float through my head and come across my desk. And it's probably not things you'll hear any other place. Just my little crazy world, history world. As I said before, we'll be on the road, research trip tomorrow. And then I'll be speaking in South Carolina on Thursday evening, and I will be in Elizabethton, Tennessee at Sycamore Shoals State Park on Saturday. 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That sounds like perfect weather to me. Perfect weather for me is mid 40s and mid 60s. I love it. So, just curious, do you have any non-white Confederate soldiers in your backyard? They could be black, they could be Native American, like Larkin Oxentine. And Larkin Oxentine, or Asian, like the Bunkers. There's a lot of discussion at times about Hispanic Confederates, especially in some of the Florida regiments. I believe that the Confederate Army, because, a lot of us, and for some of y'all it's true, a lot of us claim to have Native American ancestry. That goes around a lot, and sometimes it is true. But I firmly believe that our Confederate regiments, our Confederate companies were a lot more diverse than people want to let on. And to be honest, the only way to really get to those stories is to pick a county and research the ever living daylights out of it, and see what you find. Pick a regiment, a single regiment, and go through the census records and create spreadsheets and try and document all of these people. I know I jump around with a lot of different topics, but there are some people who spend an entire lifetime on one regiment. The gentleman who wrote the book on the 21st North Carolina, whose name escapes me right this minute, and I can't see it from here. That was what he did. He researched that regiment for his entire life and published that book and died a couple of years later. Brian Pohanka's book on the 5th New York came out after he had passed away, and he researched that book. He researched that regiment his entire life. So Jerry, that's a fascinating idea. The 42 Australians who joined the crew of the CSS Shenandoah, some of them could have been Aboriginal. I mean, that's That's fascinating. And I will confess, did they have census in Australia ever so often? Here in the United States, our Constitution says we have to do it once every 10 years. Is there something like that in Australia where we could track these men down and look at them? Jason wants to know the vortex of hell. Yes, that's the book on the fifth New York, and I think it's one of the best regimentals that have ever been written. I really do. It is just so rich. TJ, you are right. Counties do change a lot. I live in one of those areas. In the 1860 census, where I live would have been Watauga County, and then Mitchell County is formed in 1861, and Avery County is formed in 1911. So I live in Avery, and it is a challenge, an absolute challenge, to get that research done. And it takes a lot of time, and you have to be persistent, and you have to work on it for a long time, and then put it away, and then come back and see what new things you can find. I mean, that's just the way that it goes. Jason Boshears, you are correct. This is a complicated subject. Just really complicated, because the regulations do, and the Confederate government policy does state one thing, but I know that it's different than what the policy stated. Y'all are writing faster than I can keep up. I wonder if I put on my glasses, I could see better. No, I can't. I'm reading, y'all. Keep talking. Niels, I'm interested about, Hispanic men in the LA area, men of Mexican descent, or Mexicans in the LA area that joined the Confederate Army. That's one of those unexplored things. Jason Lloyd says tons of diversity system in Texas's brigade. Yes. Jason Boshears, yes, we'll never run out of projects. We'll run out of time before we run out of projects. So, Jerry, thank you for that. I will confess that my knowledge of Aboriginal Australian heritage is not even something I've ever really thought of.
My T-shirt that I brought me from Australia with the cave painting on it is about the most.
Yeah, that's beyond. But I think it's fascinating. I think it's something that we need to look deeper into, and tell these stories. And when this post about the Bunker Cousins goes up, probably tomorrow, I'll probably have it go up in the morning. Share it, please share it. There will be people who, even though I have evidence, that will not be able to see beyond their own opinion, regardless of what the evidence says. And we see that all the time. But there are a lot of other people out there that are going to see that and go, huh, never really thought of that. So that's the stories I'm trying to tell. I think it needs a ton more dedicated research. I think that's the third or fourth time I've said that this evening. We just need to dig harder and find these stories. If I can find, let me remember right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because there was a free man of color who was in the 11th Battalion, North Carolina Home Guard. If I can find 5 free men of color who served from Watauga County, which had a free population, I don't know if I have this in my notes yet or not, of like around 120. You don't know where that note is right now. No. No, I can't get to it. I don't even know if it's right there. Well, hang on. I don't know which one I'm looking for. Nope, that's not it. All right. I don't remember. But I think the free black population of Watauga County was like 120. There are a bunch of papers that are clipped together. It's got a map on the front of it, of the state. But, you know, if I could find 5 in a county that is one of the smallest counties in the state of North Carolina, what else is out there? And what else is out there for us to find? Actually, I think it may be right here, Elizabeth, but don't worry about it. You know, I have done likewise. I've done research in the Toe River Valley, and while I have found some slaves that went with their masters, I have never found any free people of color, men who served in the Confederate Army from those counties, from Yancey and Mitchell counties. And so, you know, maybe Watauga County is just an anomaly, and we just need to dig further into more of these areas. So that's actually it right there. Miss Elizabeth is doing a great job this evening. So the population, the free black population, according to the census, y'all bear with me for a second. So I probably could have looked this up faster on the interweb. It was 104. I said 120. It's 104. Is that right? No, that's not right. That is wrong. That's the actual number of slaves in the county. There were 32 free people of color who lived in Watauga County in 1860, and 5 of them served in the Confederate Army. Yep, TJ, you are absolutely correct. Elizabeth is awesome. Janet wants to know, was the 58th Regiment the only one from Watauga County? That's an awesome question, and no. One company of the 1st North Carolina Cavalry, Company D, came from Watauga County. 2 companies of the 37th Regiment, and regiments would have usually 10 companies, but 2 of the companies in the 37th Regiment came from Watauga County, and then 3-ish, maybe just a hair more than 3-ish, in the 58th Regiment came from Watauga County. The rest of the 58th Regiment were from Ashe, Mitchell, Wilkes, Yancey, and Caldwell. So part of the 58th came from Watauga, but most of it did not. It came from the surrounding mountain counties. And Jason Lloyd, that's correct. I think that once again leads toward this idea that Confederate companies and regiments were far more integrated than modern historians give them credit to be. I just, like I said, that's just where the research leads in that direction. But once again, it takes a lot of work to set down and to produce these numbers. And we need an army of people out there doing that. Small army, it'll always be a small army. But that's, I'm gonna look at something here. I don't know if I can find it real fast. So I wonder, I picked, I don't know if I can find this or not. I don't see it. I was thinking about going through several different counties and looking at that free people of color. I know it's fewer in Texas than it is other places, but the number of free people of color who lived in these individual counties, but I don't see that. I don't see that easily. That would probably take a little more work. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Jason, we're going to come back to Wiley here in the near future. This is just something that it's been on my mind for the past few weeks, and I had a little time yesterday evening, which does not happen very often right now, and I decided to make a post about it and see where it goes. We're going to have to figure out how to make this bigger. I wonder. Y'all bear with me for a second. I still have not fixed the glitch yet, but hey, that makes it bigger. Numbers of free blacks in major southern cities, that is correct. And we just need to look more into their stories. So that's my story. If y'all got other thoughts or questions, post them in the box. Now that I figured out how to make this bigger so I can actually see it, I'm going to run back through here and scroll through. But it looks like I got just about everything. And our Australian friend is actually putting up a lot of great stuff and a lot of great things to think about. And we need to continue once again to research this out and tell those stories. So if you got something else you want to chat about, drop it online and we'll see what we can do. But otherwise, we're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. Me and Miss Elizabeth are getting up really early in the morning and heading out. And looking forward to our little research trip. We haven't taken a lot of research trips lately. Yeah. Jason Bashirs, you are correct. Always so much to learn every single day. Just so much to learn. All right, folks, I think that's going to wrap it up for me this evening. I hope y'all have a fantastic time. Thank you so much for joining us here in the library. Let's see what kind of crazy stuff we can come up with for next week. Y'all have a blessed evening, and just continue to research and share. That's what it's all about. Lord willing, we'll see you next Sunday evening. And as always, God bless.